We'll mention the report. Without objection, the staff report and some associated correspondence are ordered to become part of the record. With this, we're going to turn to our first panel of witnesses and then have the opportunity for members to ask questions. We are pleased to be joined by Yoda Soros. Yoda is Senior Vice President and General Counsel of the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, the group we've been talking about, nation's leading authority and resource on issues related to missing and sexually exploited children. For over 30 years, NCMEC has provided valuable services to law enforcement and the criminal justice community with the goal of eliminating child sexual exploitation and reuniting families. It has assisted law enforcement in recovering over 200,000 missing children, including assisting with the rescue of a missing child in Cleveland, Ohio, just earlier this month. We appreciate what you do. I'm also honored to have with us today the founder of NCMEC. Many of you know John Walsh, who's here with us in the room this morning, who has been a good advisor to me and to this subcommittee. We're also pleased to be joined by Darwin Roberts. Darwin is a Deputy Attorney General with the Washington State Attorney General's Office, where he supervises the Criminal Justice Division, among other units, and is the office's lead attorney for human trafficking issues. The state of Washington has been recognized as a leader in its efforts to combat human trafficking, due in large part to the work of the state AG's office. The Polaris Project, a highly regarded national anti-trafficking organization, gave Washington the highest ranking for its anti-trafficking efforts last year. From 2005 to 2013, Mr. Roberts also served as an assistant U.S. attorney. Appreciate both of you being here this morning. We look forward to your testimony. Without objection, we're also going to make part of the record the written testimony submitted by Brant Cook, who's the director of Ohio Attorney General Mike DeWine's Crimes Against Children Initiative. Ohio has also been at the forefront of this issue under the leadership of former Senator Mike DeWine. We're also going, without objection, to make part of the record the testimony of the Chief Assistant District Attorney for Manhattan, who's also been engaged and involved in this issue with us in the subcommittee. To the witnesses, it's the custom of this subcommittee to swear in all witnesses. At this time, I'd ask you both to please stand and raise your right hand. Do you swear that the testimony you're about to give before this subcommittee will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So help you God?
I do.
Let the record reflect the witnesses answered in the affirmative. All of your written testimony will be printed in the record in its entirety. We ask that you try to limit your oral testimony to 5 minutes. Ms. Soros, we'll hear from you first.
Thank you. Chairman Portman, Ranking Member McCaskill, and members of the subcommittee, I'm pleased to be here this morning on behalf of the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. Let me take a moment to thank you for your efforts to investigate the crime of child sex trafficking and potential solutions to combat this horrible crime. I'm joined today by NCMEC's co-founder, John Walsh, and our incoming CEO, John Clark, former director of the U.S. Marshals, who are here with me to underscore NCMEC's support for the committee's work and our dedication to preventing child sex trafficking and assisting survivors and their families. We're here to talk about the online lucrative sale of America's children for sex, which in our experience occurs most prominently on the website Backpage.com. Every year in the United States, thousands of children are sold for sex and repeatedly raped. Child sex trafficking victims are boys, transgender children, and girls. We see victims as young as 11 years old, with an average age of 15. Many of these children are moved constantly from city to city, sold for sex up to 10 times a day, and tattooed by their traffickers, literally branded for life. Child sex trafficking is the rape of a child in exchange for something of value. Buying, selling, or facilitating the sale of a child for sex is always illegal. Child sex trafficking is not prostitution, and it has no relation to legal sexual activities between consenting adults. When NCMEC talks about child sex trafficking, we are talking about illegal activity that is not protected by the First Amendment. Technology has fundamentally changed how children are trafficked. Today, an adult can shop from their home, office, or hotel room, even on a cell phone, to buy a child for sex. There are advertising websites, notably Backpage, that are online marketplaces to buy and sell sexual experiences. Some may be legal, but most are not. NCMEC operates the Cyber Tip Line, the nation's reporting mechanism for suspected child sexual exploitation. Since 1998, we've received over 45,000 reports relating to suspected child sex trafficking. A majority of these reports involve ads posted on Backpage. In our experience, child sex trafficking often begins with a missing child. So far this year, more than 1,800 missing child cases reporting to NCMEC have involved possible child sex trafficking. Because there are so many child sex trafficking ads on Backpage, our staff search Backpage first when a missing child is at risk for being trafficked. At NCMEC, we routinely work with online companies to help them make sure their websites aren't misused to harm children. We met with Backpage at their request after they started voluntarily reporting some ads to us in 2010. During this time, Backpage publicly represented that it wanted to do everything possible to stop child sexual exploitation on its website. At our last meeting in 2013, Backpage was frustrated with NCMEC for not promoting their asserted efforts to curb child sex trafficking. We have not met with Backpage again because it seemed they were more interested in trying to publicly claim a partnership with NCMEC on these issues rather than reducing the sale of children on their website. During our meetings with Backpage, we recommended many steps they could take to reduce the possibility children would be sold for sex on their website. Backpage declined to adopt most of these recommended measures. Here are just two examples. Backpage does not consistently remove ads it has reported to NCMEC, even when the ad is reported by a family member of the child begging for assistance. Here is a report and what one mom and dad wrote to Backpage. Your website has ads featuring our 16-year-old daughter posing as an escort. She is being pimped out by her old boyfriend, and she is underage. I have emailed the ad multiple times using your website, but have gotten no response. For God's sake, she's only 16. We raised this issue repeatedly during our meetings with Backpage, but were never told why some ads remained live on the site after being reported. Backpage also has more stringent rules to post an ad to sell a pet, a motorcycle, or a boat. For these ads, you are required to provide a verified phone number. Even though Backpage knows its site is used for child sex trafficking, and after our repeated recommendations, Backpage still has not implemented any form of verification to post an escort ad. Today, Backpage still voluntarily reports some child sex trafficking ads to NCMEC, but they have not taken basic measures to disrupt the online marketplace of sex trafficking they have created. There is no reason to believe suspected child sex trafficking ads on Backpage have decreased. However, Backpage's number of reports this year has shrunk to less than half the number of reports in 2013, the same year we had our last meeting, and the same year NCMEC filed an amicus brief in support of child victims in a lawsuit against Backpage. Before I close, I would like to acknowledge the tremendous efforts of many other advocacy groups, many of whom are here in the room today, and the attorneys who are working on civil court cases in Massachusetts and Washington to end the devastating online business of selling children for sex on websites like Backpage. Mr. Chairman and other members, I thank you for the chance to share this information regarding child sex trafficking in Backpage, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Ms. Soros. Mr. Roberts, we'd now like to hear from you.
Good morning, Chairman Portman, Ranking Member McCaskill, members of the subcommittee. Thank you for the opportunity to appear here today. I'm appearing on behalf of Attorney General Bob Ferguson, who appreciates the invitation and regrets that he wasn't able to come here in person. I'm proud to be here representing Washington State, which has been recognized as a leader among the states in fighting human trafficking at the state level. We were the first state to make it a crime to commit human trafficking at the state level. And of course, our state definition of human trafficking matches the federal in that the use of force, fraud, or coercion for forced labor, involuntary servitude, or commercial sex acts is classified as human trafficking. And of course, the commercial sexual abuse of a minor is any use of a minor in a commercial sex act, because minors are recognized as not being able to consent legally to engage in any sort of sex act with an adult, much less a commercial one. While we appreciate the chairman's credit to the Attorney General's office for the work we've done, I think I'd be remiss if I didn't emphasize that we have an entire community of folks doing really good work in Washington State. And if it weren't for everyone, all of our partners in law enforcement, the nonprofit community, and other government agencies, we would not be close to where we are today. Washington has had the experience of becoming involved in litigation with Backpage.com in the course of our efforts to prevent the use of the internet for human trafficking and the commercial sexual exploitation of children. In 2012, the state of Washington passed a law that aimed to criminally punish any person who, using the internet, quote, knowingly publishes, disseminates, or displays, or causes directly or indirectly to be published, disseminated, or displayed any advertisement for a commercial sex act which is to take place in the state of Washington, and that includes the depiction of a minor. Backpage.com led a challenge to this law before it could be implemented. The Attorney General's office attempted to defend the law in court, but the U.S. District Court in Seattle ruled that the law would be enjoined on the grounds that it was unconstitutionally vague under the First Amendment and also likely preempted by the Communications Decency Act. Almost simultaneously with this ruling by the U.S. District Court, though, a lawsuit was filed in Washington Superior Court in Pierce County, Tacoma, alleging that Backpage, in fact, had done more than just be a site that hosted the posting of ads, as they claimed, in order to invoke their immunity under the Communications Decency Act. In that case, several minors who alleged that they were, in fact, prostituted using Backpage.com sued, alleging that Backpage had essentially, by several means, including making themselves a market leader, in other words, the go-to site for online prostitution ads, by using terms like escorts, euphemisms widely recognized as being, telling consumers that prostitution is the kind of service that they could purchase on this website, and by using what the plaintiffs termed sham efforts at self-policing to allegedly try to keep ads for underage individuals off the site. That by doing this, Backpage.com had moved beyond the mere facilitation or posting of the ads, and in fact itself was materially contributing to the use of its site to sell minors for sex. Our Attorney General's office filed an amicus brief in support of these plaintiffs when their case went to the Washington Supreme Court. And on the posture of the Backpage's initial motion to dismiss, we argued that, in fact, the plaintiffs should be allowed to conduct discovery to determine whether Backpage was materially contributing, as the plaintiffs alleged. The Washington Supreme Court this fall ruled in favor of the plaintiffs, and that case is now proceeding to discovery. We're aware that in the course of this litigation and others, Backpage.com has repeatedly asserted that law enforcement is best helped if Backpage remains open as a website for the posting of adult services type ads and works with law enforcement, as they put it, to try to prevent minors from being trafficked using their site. These commitments sound positive, as stated by Backpage, but the Washington State Attorney General's office and others is not at all certain whether these commitments are at all sufficient to do the kind of work necessary to prevent individuals from being trafficked on the site. During this entire period, even as Backpage has said this, there have been repeated, numerous instances of children being trafficked on Backpage, as Ms. Soros just cited. So the question for the Attorney General's office is, what is Backpage doing? What are their goals? How effective are their techniques? Are they doing everything they can? Is there more they could be doing? What are the costs of their compliance to them internally relative to the significant revenues, as the subcommittee cited, that they're making off these ads? So for all of those reasons, the Washington State Attorney General's office hopes that Backpage.com will respond to the subcommittee subpoena and will shed more light on how exactly it claims to be working to prevent the sex trafficking of minors. Thank you, and I'd be happy to answer any questions as well.
Thank you, Mr. Roberts. I appreciate both of you for your testimony. Your perspective is really valuable to the subcommittee, and I think we're going to have some very interesting dialogue now. We're going to begin with 5-minute questions rounds so that every member has got an opportunity, and we'll go as many rounds as necessary to get the questions answered. I'd like to start with just making the statement that it appears from what both of you have said that technology has fundamentally changed the way children can be victimized through sex trafficking. I mean, that's the fundamental truth that we're hearing here, and it's something the subcommittee certainly found, and you can see that in our report. Ms. Soros, let me start with you. I, as you know, have deep concerns about this notion of editing advertisements. And we have had in our report, as you'll see, some evidence of that. Let me ask you first, how prevalent are advertisements for sexual exploitation of minors on Backpage.com in your experience?
Mr. Chairman, as I testified to a few moments ago, Backpage actually is the first place that NCMEC searches when we have a missing child case where there is suspicion that the child is being trafficked. That is because even though the child may also have a trafficking ad on another site, they will always have a trafficking ad on Backpage if they are being trafficked. So between that and then the numbers of reports that we've received, as I mentioned, over 45,000 reports of child sex trafficking, with a predominant number of those either from the public or otherwise being reported on Backpage ads, it is clear to NCMEC that Backpage really is the primary marketplace online for these ads.
You said over 70% of all suspected child sex trafficking reports that you receive on your cyber tip line are related to Backpage.
From the public, that's correct.
Yeah, amazing. On the subject of underage victims, I want to turn your attention now to one of the many emails that our investigation has uncovered. This email is from the company that Backpage used to outsource the job of screening its advertisements. It's a process, as I said earlier, Backpage calls moderation. In the email, that company instructs moderators who had the job of reviewing and editing the ads, including how to handle ads for victims that look underage. The ad instructs moderators, and I've got this here. You can find it, by the way, if you want to look in the appendix to the report, page 122. 122 of the appendix to the report. The email instructs moderators that if they are in doubt about underage, the process should be to accept the ad. The process should be to accept the ad if you're in doubt. It also cautions moderators that they should, quote, only delete ads if you are really sure the person is underage. Seems to me there's a bias there, but let me ask you, Ms. Soros, does it sound like instructions a company would give if it was really concerned about everything it could do to keep kids off the internet?
No, absolutely not. If a company really has a sincere interest in trying to deter and remove child sexual exploitation, including child sex trafficking content, from its website, then it will undertake a number of preventative measures early on, and it also will deal with ads, such as ads that likely will be picturing children or minors. It will not allow that content up, and it will report that content as well. It will not take a half measure, such as noted here. I will, just glancing at this email, this is very similar to what Backpage had told NCMEC was part of its moderation process regarding children that, quote unquote, might appear to be young.
Yeah, as we've talked about, Backpage has a practice of editing images and text out of certain ads before they publish them. One of the obvious concerns I see here is that when you edit an ad and change its wording, of course, you're not changing the the underlying transaction. You don't change the potential for the underlying crime that's being committed. I have a few questions for you. To start, were you aware that Backpage moderators edited ads in this manner?
We had had previous conversations with Backpage regarding the editing of ads as it pertained to photographs. We do not recall any discussions with Backpage about moderators actually editing text of the ads. We had been told by Backpage that when an ad came in, often with multiple photographs, if there was a photograph that they deemed to be a violation of their terms of service, containing nudity, for instance, or graphic sexual activity, that ad would be pulled, and then the ad would move forward into the posting process.
So let's assume that the evidence that we have uncovered is accurate and there is this kind of editing. What concern does that practice give you?
It's incredibly troubling, Mr. Chairman, as you noted, on a number of grounds. One is that it definitely obfuscates the illegal activity that is the intent of that ad. If somebody is posting an ad and saying, this is a 15-year-old, or providing other information, that is a minor who is being sold for a sex act, and Backpage merely strips the age component out, or whatever the other indicia of youth might be, or of being a child, that is definitely, as you noted, hiding the crime before it goes public. To me also from a legal standpoint, it could very much create concerns about, is Backpage still in its publisher category, or is it shifting now into becoming a creator in some ways of these ads as well?
I would just say my time is coming to an end, but I also think it makes it harder for you to find these kids. It's harder to rescue children, because when you don't have the full ad, and when they're giving you this edited version rather than the complete record of the ad, including the photo and all the original text that might have existed prior to the editing, which would help you, that makes it more difficult for you to rescue these kids. Isn't that accurate?
That is absolutely correct. If we are able to receive all the photographs and all the text, the additional information, whether it is a photo that might include the face of the child, which could obviously benefit greatly the identification of that child, or other information such as a phone number or an email address that's in the original ad that might have gotten stripped by the Backpage moderator. That sort of information is crucial for law enforcement to rescue that child and also to pursue the individual that is selling that child for sex.
Thank you, Ms. Horace.